But then she took her hammer and she started like smashing windows, and I was like, oh, she's lost it. She has absolutely lost it. And welcome back to my channel. Today is currently the first day of August. Fall is on the horizon. It's so close. I'm so excited. So I feel like August is the perfect time of the year to read books that aren't necessarily spooky, but they're kind of leading you into fall. And you know what I think is a perfect genre for kind of leading you into fall? Mystery. So today I've decided I'm going to read one of the mystery series that has been on my mind for a while. I've really been wanting to pick this up. I've had all 3 books for quite a long time. It is finally time that I'm going to read the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series by Holly Jackson. So earlier this year, I actually read 5 Survive by Holly Jackson, which is a young adult thriller. I ended up really loving it, and I think I gave it a 5-star. I just had like a really fun reading experience, and it has made me very excited to finally pick up the infamous Good Girl's Guide to Murder series, also by Holly Jackson. Honestly, I don't think I know anything about this series at all, which is kind of a feat because I know so many people love and adore this series. I know it's very popular. I just don't know anything about it. I know you're following our main character, Pip, and she's solving a mystery, but that's all I got. I have heard from some of you guys that this series does get like more unhinged the more that I read it. And I'm just very intrigued to see what that's all about. So I'm going to be reading all 3 of these books in this vlog. And then if I end up really enjoying this series, I will pick up Killjoy, which is a prequel novella of sorts. I don't think it's really related to the events that go down in this, but I think you're following our main character as she goes to like a murder mystery party. And that sounds really fun. So I will definitely be picking that up if I enjoy the series enough. So that will also be in this vlog. So I am super excited to jump into this series. I actually put a Good Girl's Guide to Murder in my 5-star predictions video that I did a few months ago. So I have very high expectations, very interested to see if they will be met. So we're just gonna get into this video. However, I was wondering whether or not I should do spoilers in this video or not, so I asked on my Instagram story. And based on what a lot of people said who had already read this series, I should probably do this video with spoilers because I know just a lot of things go down, and I feel like there are going to be a lot of things that I want to talk about. So I have decided that I am going to do this video with spoilers. If you haven't read the series, I'm so sorry, but I just feel like if I try and do this video without spoilers, I probably won't really have much of anything to say. So there's your spoiler warning. If you haven't read this series and you plan to, maybe don't watch this. But if you have read the series or you haven't and you just kind of want to know what goes on, welcome to the video. So let us get into the vlog. Obviously, I'm going to start with A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I don't have a ton of plans today. I am going to see the Barbie movie again later, but that's not until like 4. So I have a ton of time today to read. I'm so excited to get into this series and just see what I think. So let's do it. So I'm here with my first reading update. I have made it to page 51, and I thought right now would be a good time to stop and kind of give you my initial impressions of the book. So I'm really liking this so far. I feel like it definitely kind of just gets right into it. It tells you like why we're here, what we're doing, who we're doing it with, all that kind of stuff. And I am so excited to see where this book is gonna go. Obviously, we have been introduced to our main character Pip, who for her senior capstone project is going to be investigating the murder of a girl that happened in their town a few years ago. A lot of people think that her boyfriend did it. Pip is not convinced. And I don't think I'm convinced either that he did it, because like why else would this whole series be written if he was actually the one that did it? Although maybe that's what Holly Jackson wants you to think. I am honestly terrible at guessing things that happen in like mysteries and thrillers, so I have no clue. But honestly, that does just kind of make it more fun because I never see anything coming. So it's always a good time. You're following Pip and you're seeing kind of all the preliminary research that she's doing, and I didn't even know this about this book, but it's kind of mixed media, and I love mixed media books, so I'm so excited about that because throughout the course of this book, you are kind of reading what she has written in her like capstone project log, so you're seeing like her thoughts and research on it, but you're also seeing transcripts of phone calls that she's had. She has like screenshots from social media and all of this stuff, and I love a good mixed media format. A couple of weeks ago, actually, I read a different book that was like mixed media format, but for that one, it was like the entirety of the book was mixed media, which I still really enjoyed, but the fact that this one does kind of have like some regular chapters thrown in there, I really like kind of the hybrid that it has going on. Or I guess, is it a hybrid? Is it still just considered mixed media if there are normal chapters? I have no idea. Don't take my word for it. But getting back to like what's actually happened in the book, we've also met who I'm pretty sure is like our other main character, Ravi, who is the brother of the guy who everybody thinks murdered his girlfriend, if that makes sense. And while I knew from things that I've heard online that he was the other main character, I had no clue that he was related to the guy that everybody thinks did it. So that's a really interesting thing to throw in there. And I'm very intrigued to see how that is going to factor into the investigation, because I have a feeling he is going to become a more major part of it. We have seen like some initial reactions, kind of Pip interviewing him, but I would assume he's gonna kind of get more into the investigation process. And I'm excited to see what their dynamic is gonna be going forward. I think, if I'm correct, there's like a little bit of a romance, maybe, which sounds fun. I always love a good little romance going in. He's also like a bit older, because I know this book is YA, but he's like 20. So I love books obviously with characters in their early 20s, because I am also in my early 20s. So I just feel like that always increases my enjoyment. So those are all of my initial thoughts and feelings on this book. I'm so excited because I really do think I'm going to love this. So I'm gonna sit down, read a bunch of this, and I will give you guys an update in a bit. Also, Fritz is indeed here. Hi. You're so grumpy all the time. She looks so pissed. So it is later. I did go see the Barbie movie for a second time. It was so much fun. But I do have quite the update for you guys. I have made it up to page 211. So I think I'm a little bit over halfway through the book now, and I am really enjoying it. I don't think it's going to be a 5-star book. It's leaning towards a 4-star, which is honestly really disappointing, because as I mentioned earlier, I made a 5-star predictions video a few months ago, and I think literally every book that I've read so far off of that list has been a 4-star. Maybe one of them will end up being a 5-star, but so far it's not looking too good because I've read like a decent amount of this list, but maybe the end of this book is just gonna blow my mind and I'll have to give it a 5-star. That's always the goal. I just don't know if that's gonna happen. But things have happened. And like, they're not even like super crazy things, but they are things that are leading me to believe that Pip is kind of insane. Because based on her actions so far, I 100% believe that she will do whatever it takes to get to the bottom of this case. And while that is the mark of a good detective, some of the things she's doing, I'm like, is this ethical. But in the time since I have last talked to you, she ended up catfishing one of Andy's friends, pretending to be like one of their other friends so she could get more information out of her. I was like, very smart, but also kind of awful. She also kind of suspects her friend Kara's sister. So she did this thing in Kara's computer that would like keep a history of the things that were being printed on their family's printer, because Pip has received some like notes that were like printed out, and she's trying to figure out like obviously who is sending these to her, and if she does that, she can see if Kara's sister Naomi is printing them. I mean, I really don't think it's Naomi, but she is getting like some threatening notes already, and I'm like, it's not looking good. Like, it's really not looking good. So that was kind of questionable, especially because like that's one of her best friends, and she's like, I don't know, something about that really doesn't sit right with me. And then she also, like, honestly, this one is the worst one, but she broke into Andy's house because she was talking to Andy's drug dealer. That's another thing. We found out that Andy was, I think, dealing drugs, like, with this dude named Howie. So she ended up like following this drug dealer Howie, and she was like taking pictures for evidence of him like dealing to, I think, kids that go to her high school. And first of all, I was like, that's bold. And then later that night, she ended up going to Howie's house and like blackmailed him for information. I was like, girl, you are bold for that one. But she got like some information from Howie that led her to go like break in, well, it's not really breaking into Andy's house because like they found a key, but like they're trespassing into Andy's house. They like went up into Andy's bedroom and like was trying to find something under a floorboard. They didn't even find anything, but they still like broke into somebody's house. And I was like, how are you gonna put this in your capstone report log? Because is this not for a school project? And would the person grading her capstone project not be like, I'm gonna call the police, why did you break into somebody's house for this? It's just stressful times, you know? But also, I'm thoroughly entertained because I feel like Pip is just going to go further and further down this rabbit hole of like doing whatever it takes to get the evidence that she is looking for. And while I somewhat respect the devotion to her capstone project, I'm also somewhat concerned. Also, since the last time I talked to you, she did start working with Ravi, and I do really enjoy the addition of somebody else into the investigation, because while I do enjoy Pip as a character on her own, I do really enjoy her dynamic with Ravi, and I'm excited to see how that is going to develop over the course of the series. Also, the fact that he is Salil's brother adds, you know, just like another layer to everything that's going on, and it's just very interesting to see how he reacts to certain pieces of evidence. Obviously, he has like a very personal stake in the investigation. So that's just I really like that element to it. So I think that's all I have to say for now. So I'm just going to sit down and read some more of this tonight. Maybe I will give you an update before the end. Maybe I won't. We'll see. At any rate, I will probably talk to you guys tomorrow. So, it is the next day. I have indeed finished the first book in the series, and it's definitely a very strong 4-star. I'm not like absolutely obsessed with it, but I really enjoyed my time reading it. I thought it was super fun. It was a really fast read. It's well paced. I like the characters. I like the mystery. Just everything about it I really enjoyed. But it's just not quite at that 5-star level, if that makes sense. But I definitely have quite a few things to update you on, because last night I think I was a little bit over halfway, and obviously we have like 200 pages to talk about here relatively quickly. First of all, it turns out that all of the people that Sal was with the night that like everything went down kind of pulled like an I know what you did last summer kind of moment, and like accidentally killed somebody while they were driving home from a party while they were drunk. And that's like this whole thing, and it's why they ended up like taking back Sal's alibi and like lying to the police about it because somebody was blackmailing them. And I just love all of the like layers to this mystery, because while you have like the main like people that actually did it, there are a lot of people in the web of lies, and like everybody is kind of, you know, had their own shady thing going on in their past. It reminds me a lot of 5 Survive, because in that book there was this person trying to get this certain piece of information out of our main character, but like throughout the course of the book everybody kind of has dirty secrets in their past, and you're kind of like, oh, that's juicy. And it's kind of the same thing in this book, because while you have certain people that are like the main murderers, yes, there are 2 main murderers in this book, there's just like a bunch of other information being revealed that is also very juicy. I don't know if I want to call it juicy because somebody literally got murdered, but also it's fictional, so like, you know what I mean. But all of that information kind of led Pip and Ravi to the conclusion that like Sal didn't do it and that he was innocent. And honestly, I didn't have any doubt that Sal was innocent, because like what would be the point of this book if he wasn't innocent, you know? But kind of seeing what it took for them to get to that conclusion, I really enjoyed. And then obviously they're like, where do we go from here? Also, something else that wounded me deeply was the fact that Barney died. And I was so sad because I really did not think that Holly Jackson was gonna kill off the dog. But she did. I was like, not Barney. I was like, I didn't even know Barney that well. He wasn't really that prevalent in the book, but I was like, why'd you have to go for Barney? Like, I get it. I see how it advanced the plot and what it did for the story. And that was probably the only viable option to like advance the story in that way, huh? Because, you know, probably don't want to kill off like an actual person, but they need to do something kind of drastic. Okay, I see it. It makes sense, I just don't like it. Well, that was really sad. Then a bunch of other stuff happened, which honestly I'm not gonna recap. But then we got to the end of the story, and I certainly did not have any guesses as to who actually committed the murder. I did not think there were two people, but I think the fact that there are two people that like had a part in this whole fiasco was really interesting and a good twist. So it turned out to be Kara's dad who murdered Sal because he was having an inappropriate relationship with Andy, because like he was an old man. He was her teacher. She was 17. I was like, ew, I don't like it. But he ended up murdering Sal. Honestly, I don't even remember why at this point. But it also turns out he was keeping this girl who he thought was Andy in a house like a couple miles away from town. I was like, that is terrifying. And the fact that the girl that he was keeping was like mentally ill in a way that like she fully thought she was Andy Bell, I was like, that just adds a whole new layer of like messed upness to this story. And I don't like it, but also like it's just very interesting. But then you also found out that like obviously since he didn't kill Andy, you found out that Andy's sister killed Andy, and I was like, that's tea. I never really trusted Becca, to be honest, but I didn't think she was the one that murdered Andy. But honestly, like I don't want to say deserved because that's not deserved, but Andy also sounds honestly like the worst sister ever. But while I wouldn't say the ending of this book was like crazy or anything, I thought it was a really solid mystery and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, there's the first book done. It is time to pick up Good Girl, Bad Blood. Does this one, oh, okay, yeah. I was like, does this one not have the mixed media format? Because towards the end of this book, when Pip didn't like have her whole like capstone log thing going on and it was just like normal writing, I was like, you know, it's good. But I really like that mixed media element. So I think it's prevalent in this one again. I have no idea what this book is going to be about though, because the ending of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder is very like, everything's wrapped up, you know what happens. There's like one paragraph towards the end, it's like, there are, you know, other dark secrets in Fairview or whatever, but I was like, I feel like nothing that important hasn't been wrapped up yet, so I have no idea what is about to happen in this book. I could read the synopsis. Do I want to do that? Oh, is this a different murder? Oh, no, it is related. Okay, I'm not fully reading it, I'm just giving it a good skim. But it looks like Pip and Ravi start a true crime podcast. I've never listened to a true crime podcast before. It's not really my thing, but I see the appeal, and I think it'll be fun to kind of see that in book form. So I'm going to jump into this book. Very interested to see where things are gonna go, and if it ends up revealing more things about like unresolved issues in this book. I don't know. I am excited. So we are going to get into it, and I'll give you guys an update in like 50 pages. Okay, so I have started Good Girl Bad Blood. I am up to page 59 now. I think I now have a grasp on what this book is gonna be about, like what the mystery is, where our characters are, like all that kind of stuff. So basically so far in this book, we are kind of seeing where the characters are mentally and physically, like just like where they ended up after the events of the first book. Obviously, they're all kind of going through it for good reasons, obviously, but we've seen like a memorial service for Andy and Sal, very emotional times, although they also said that Babe was Sal's favorite movie, and that made me giggle. But we are also seeing that Pip and Ravi did start a podcast, which is called A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. And honestly, I love things like that. When the name of a book is referenced like in that book or in books later in the series, I think it's really fun because Ravi was like, why don't you name the podcast A Good Girl's Guide to Murder? And Pip was like, that's stupid. And I just thought that was funny. As for the mystery aspect of the story, it turns out that Pip's friend Connor, his brother Jamie, has recently gone missing, and they went to the police with it, but the police aren't gonna do anything because he's like 24 and he's been known to kind of disappear, so the police don't really see it as a high priority thing that they're gonna spend their time on. So Connor goes to Pip and he's like, hey, would you investigate this for me? And Pip's like, I've given up the life of being a detective. It's not for me anymore. A lot of bad things came about due to her investigating the whole Sal case. And I feel like it was honestly kind of bold of Connor to ask Pip to do it again. Like, I know this is just awful and he will like obviously do anything to get his brother back, but like to ask Pip to kind of go into that headspace again, I don't know how I feel about it, to be honest. However, I'm assuming that's just kind of, you know, the main mystery of this book. I'm sure it will probably tie into the events of the first book, so I'm interested to see where that's gonna come into it. And again, so far, I've just been enjoying it. I feel like I don't want to call these books cozy, but honestly, I kind of consider a lot of like mystery books that I read cozy. So like bad things are happening, like people are dying, potentially, you know, allegedly. But it's like, it's just kind of cozy, you know? And it's like a nice dreary day outside. So like the weather is perfect. So I'm excited to get into some more of this. I'm going to get back into Good Girl Bad Blood. I will give you an update eventually. Okay, first of all, we do have a visitor. You can't see her. And I don't really want to move her actually now that I think about it. Look at me, weirdo. Oh, she's so cute. Anyway, I have made some significant progress. I am now up to page 150. So I think I'm like a little bit over a third of the way through the book. And to be honest, I don't really know if I have much to update you on. Like, things have definitely happened, but I feel like at this point in time, it's not as fast-paced as the first one was. And while we are finding out like some information about Jamie and like the circumstances of his disappearance, like we found out that the night he disappeared, he went to this like high school party. So he was like a 24-year-old at like a house party with a bunch of 18-year-olds, which is like obviously questionable. We also found out that he was recently fired from his job. He's been acting really weird. There's also a big and scary kitchen knife missing from like Jamie's parents' kitchen. Apparently recently he has been on like the phone a lot, having tense conversations with somebody. So that leads me to think like maybe he's being blackmailed by somebody, but for what? I don't know. I'm still really hoping that this does tie into the initial mystery, but I'm like, what else is there to like tie it into? I just don't know. This is not where I thought the like series was gonna go, because I was kind of expecting this series to focus on people who were on the persons of interest list that Pip had in the first book, but also like it's kind of also more interesting in a way that we're not. Maybe we will be. I just don't know. Also, I feel like I'm not really invested in the mystery aspect of it, nor are we really trying to find out anything for anybody that we really know that well. Like, I know Connor is one of Pip's really good friends, but like we don't really know much about Connor. And like I don't really feel much towards Connor. Like, I'm sad that his brother went missing, but like you don't have that personal investment in the mystery like you did with the first one, because obviously Ravi was helping out with the mystery of like his brother going missing, so there was like all those personal ties to it that I really enjoyed. But for this one, it's just not quite that. I'm not disliking it. I'm still really enjoying it. It'll probably be like a high 3-star or maybe like a very flat 4-star. We'll have to see, because I think A Good Girl's Guide to Murder was like a high 4-star, but this one's feeling like a flat 4-star. Does that make any sense? But also, I wish there was more Ravi in this book, because I feel like, you know, he's been there. He was like kind of the co-detective in the first book, but we're not really getting a lot of him. And I really liked his character. Like, he's probably my favorite character so far in the series. And he's just not in it as much as I was necessarily expecting him to be in it. Like, I know he's in it a decent amount, but he's not like, you know, like a main character or anything. And I wasn't necessarily expecting him to be a main character, but I just wanted to see more of him, because I really like him. I think he's got a good sense of humor. He adds something a bit more fun to the story because, I mean, Pip honestly does kind of lack pizzazz. Like, love her. I think she's a really good main character, but she does kind of lack pizzazz. And he really adds that pizzazz, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, that's kind of all I have for now on Good Girl Bad Blood. Enjoying it, not as much as I thought I would. So I'm gonna get reading and I'll update you guys when I have something more substantial to say. Okay, so it is not the next day, it is the day after. I got very distracted by just like a lot of things yesterday, and I think I read like 10 pages. So not exactly what I was aiming for, but it's all good. I did watch the entirety of Heartstopper season 2 in one sitting last night though, and it was so lovely. But not a lot of reading went on, but that's okay, because I did some reading this morning and I have made it up to page, where am I? 295. So almost at the 300 page mark, pretty close to finishing the book. I don't really know if I'm loving this one, to be honest, at this point in time. It's not because it's bad. I just don't know if the mystery is like super gripping me, but let me tell you the couple of things that have happened in the last time since I talked to you. So at this point in the book, Jamie has been missing for 6 days, so obviously everybody's starting to like take it a bit more seriously. They're more worried, they're a little more concerned. But it's very interesting to see that now that Pip has turned like Jamie's missing person case into like the second season of her podcast, like what the public's reception to that is, because on one hand, you have like all of these people who are a huge fan of her podcast that like absolutely love it. They're like, here are my theories. There's like Reddit threads. It's really interesting to see like how the public is kind of playing a hand in solving this case, because people are like offering some legit suggestions. And I think the fact that Pip is now like a known entity by people like outside of her town, it's really interesting to see like how she reacts to it, how the public reacts to it. Obviously, some people do not exactly like the fact that she is turning this into the second season of her podcast. The very last thing that I read was the Wire Rip article, like accusing Pip of making all of this up so she could make the second season of her podcast, and she's like paying Jamie to stay missing, which is honestly a very bold thing for a news source to print, but it's definitely adding some drama. It turns out Jamie was being catfished by this girl who called herself Layla, and it turns out she was also catfishing like Pip's history teacher, Nat De Silva's brother Daniel, who has a wife, so that's really questionable. So I'm definitely intrigued to kind of figure out who is behind that. So that's kind of where I'm at with Good Girl Bad Blood. Not loving it, but like it's pretty good. It'll probably be like a 3.5-ish, maybe? But I am really excited to jump into the third book in the series. Cannot wait to see what I think of that one. So there's my reading update. Also, yesterday I did do a bit of book shopping, which does pertain, one of them pertains to this video, so don't worry, but I'm also going to show you the other things that I picked up just because I want to. So first of all, I did go to Half Price and I found 2 more Goosebumps books, which I'm very excited about. We have Let's Get Invisible and The Scarecrow Walks at Midnight. I really enjoyed Small Spaces by Catherine Arden, which also has to deal with like creepy scarecrows, so when I saw this one I was really excited. And this one just seems like, you know, a fun little time. So those are 2 more Goosebumps books added to my collection. I'm trying to collect a bunch of them so I can read them in like September and October, so this is helpful. And then I went to Target and I did pick up Killjoy, which is the prequel novella. I'm really excited about this one. Also, I really like the cover design for this, like the broken plates and blood everywhere. It's very interesting. But like I said earlier in this vlog, this takes place before the events of like this entire series, so I think you're following Pip as she goes to like a 1920s themed murder mystery party, which sounds really fun, and I will be reading this in this vlog after I finish As Good as Dead, so get excited for that because I am certainly excited to jump into this one as well. Also, it's like super floppy. I mean, look at this thing. It's insanely floppy. That is, I think, everything that I had to update you on for this morning. I'm going to go finish this up and I will tell you guys, obviously, my final thoughts. Me interjecting here. Do you know who is about to get added to my list of fictional characters that I want to fight? Ant and Lauren. What is wrong with them? I figured some people probably would believe the what is it called? Like the wired rip. Wire drip? Maybe it's wire drip. That sounds that makes so much more sense than wired rip. We won't talk about that one. Like, I figured some people would believe the article and think like, yeah, Pip is making all of this up. But the fact that Pip's friends, no. That fact that Connor's friends are like, you know, it does seem a little convenient. Like, what? No. Honestly, I didn't really like Lauren from the moment that she was introduced in this series. Like, her vibes were off. And now her vibes are really off, but like now that she's gotten into a relationship with Ant, I hate them. And like I know that's the point, that like they're supposed to be an annoying couple, but like they get on my nerves, you know? And now they're really getting on my nerves, so. Yeah, I just wanted to say that. I think Pip's finally starting to lose it. And honestly, if I were in her position, maybe I would start to lose it too. It's interesting because on the last page, like still talking about the fact that like maybe it's very convenient that Jamie has gone missing. She's like, did I plant the knife? Could I have planted the knife? Is Jamie even missing? Is Layla real? Is any of this real? And like what a concept for like a missing person mystery kind of thing. For like the detective to just be so off the rails that they make it all up. Like they're the ones that planted the evidence. They're kind of just deluding themselves into thinking that like, yeah, this needs to be solved and like, yeah, this person's really missing. If that's how this book ends, honestly, 5 stars. Like that's a really interesting concept, which I'm sure probably has been done before, but I've never seen it done before. So I think that's kind of cool. Of course, I have no idea if this is where this is going, but it would be interesting if that is where it did go. Something to think about. Just a quick update here because Pip has definitely done something pretty unhinged. And honestly, I'm kind of living for it, I can't lie. But she was being angsty about everything that's happened, which honestly, probably pretty valid, but the way in which she dealt with it, interesting. I'm all for that feminine rage, but it's a lot. Because like while all of the like current book mystery stuff is going on, you are seeing some updates from like the trials that came about due to the first book's like mystery and all that. So Max Hastings, who roofied and assaulted quite a few women at, you know, their calamity parties, he was on trial for those crimes and he was found not guilty. So obviously Pip is very, you know, upset at the justice system, very rightly so, might I add. So, in order to get her own vengeance, I guess, she first of all posted the audio bit from her interview, or more like an interrogation with Max Hastings, of him like basically admitting to it. And then she also went and vandalized his house. Like, she started painting on his door. I was like, okay, yeah, sure. But then she took her hammer and she started like smashing windows, and I was like, oh, she's lost it. She has absolutely lost it. Like, deserved, but also like she really has. Just like, I can see the beginnings of Pip just like absolutely going off the rails. And I'm intrigued. I was getting a little bit bored in this book, I can't lie, but now that this has happened, I am definitely back to being into it. So I'm very interested to see what the last 90 pages of this book are going to hold, but I am excited. That's the update. That's literally all I wanted to talk about, because I did not see that coming at all. And I get that that's the point, that like you start with Pip being this like model student who, you know, never does anything wrong. She always does her homework or whatever. And you're kind of starting to see her like act out. The dichotomy that that creates is just so interesting, and seeing the impact that the last year has had on like Pip and her mental state is also, it's just a very interesting other layer to add into this mystery series, and I'm really enjoying it. So yeah, I'm on page 313 now. Like I said, I have like 90 pages left, so I'm excited. Okay, so I have just finished Good Girl Bad Blood, and I think I actually have decided that I'm gonna give this one 4-star, solely based on all the crazy shit that happens in like the last 90 pages of this book, because the majority of this book focused mainly on Jamie and like solely on him. But then like the last 90 pages, this one piece of information like unlocked this whole like other side to everything that was going on, and I was like, oh, okay. And it was so interesting, honestly, because at one point Pip went to talk to Nat Da Silva's boyfriend, and apparently he saw Jamie right before Jamie went missing, and Jamie said something weird to him like child broomstick or child, what was the other one? Brown stick. And Pip was like, what the hell does that mean? But she did a little bit of Googling, and she found out that he was actually saying child Brunswick, which then opens up this like whole part of the mystery that is related to this child of a serial killer who was like active in the early 2000s for like murdering a bunch of children, and his like 10-year-old son was helping him like lure these children off of like playgrounds and stuff. So it turns out that like the entirety of this mystery started because these new neighbors moved into town. Never trust the new neighbors. I guess that's just what you gotta know. But it turns out they have spent like nearly 2 decades trying to track down this person because his dad, the serial killer, murdered the neighbor's twin sister back in the early 2000s. And Jamie like somehow managed to get caught up in all of this while he was being catfished by this girl named Layla, who was actually a like catfish created by this couple to like narrow down the occupants of Fairview into like men who are about to turn 30 because they are looking for this dude and they want to murder him. And like I mean, like, it's not funny, but like just the turn that this book took in such like a quick amount of time, I was like, literally what's going on? But literally in the best way, because while it happened in such a short span of time, I don't really feel like it was rushed or anything, but I feel like it made the ending of this book, like the pacing just crazy, and I had to know what was gonna happen next. Like I really enjoyed the introduction of like that element into the mystery, because I feel like it's honestly kind of a slow build to get there. But then when you get there, you're like, wow. But it does turn out that the child of the serial killer does live in Fairview. His name is Stanley Forbes. We were actually introduced to him in the first book of the series. And the book ends with the new neighbor guy shooting Stanley Forbes like 6 times while Pip is there. So she is like traumatized. And I feel like she is going to be traumatized for this next book. Like, I feel like some crazy shit is about to happen in this next book, honestly, because I think Pip is like 2 seconds away from just becoming completely unhinged, and I am ready for it. I am ready to see what is going to happen in As Good as Dead. So yeah, I'm back to being really invested in this series. I can't lie, this one took me a while to like fully get into it, but like the last 90 pages are really the saving grace of this book, because I was like, what a plot line. It was just really good. So it is now time, as I said, to jump into As Good as Dead. Oh my god, the rhyme. I have no idea what else. Oh. Sorry. I have no idea what is about to go down in this book. I've heard from a lot of people that this one is, I think, like the most unhinged out of the three of them. And I think that sounds really exciting. I cannot wait to read some of this, and it's a bit longer than the other ones. I'm very excited. Okay, I almost just gave myself a spoiler. I almost just looked at the very last page and now I'm scared. I didn't like read anything of note, I don't think. No more flipping through books. That is no more, okay? I'm just gonna start As Good as Dead, and I will just give you guys an update in a bit when I figure out what this book is about. So it is the next day. I have decided to put on my bloody knife earrings because while I don't think anybody's been stabbed in this series yet, that I can remember at least, based on what I've read so far of As Good as Dead, I don't really, you know, never say never. I have indeed made some progress in As Good as Dead. I am up to page 126. And I think it's gonna be really good. So I feel like it's taken me a little bit to kind of fully get into the story and figure out exactly what the plot of this book is going to be. But now that I feel like I have a grasp on that, I think this last book is going to be so good. So this book doesn't really get right into it like the other two books in the series have. I feel like this one has mainly been focusing on Pip and kind of the aftermath of everything that has happened in the last two books. She is really going through it. She's turned to like non-prescription pills just to help her get through the day. I feel like she's really like angsty and on edge all the time. And like just the culmination of everything that has happened up to this point, like that definitely makes sense. And I really do feel for Pip. But she, like, it's just not a good time for her, and I feel so bad for her, especially with, like, everything that's happening now in this book, because it is a lot. And I probably would have lost it a long time ago. A lot of things have been happening to Pip so far in this book that lead her to believe that she has a stalker. She's gotten a lot of weird, like, tweets and emails that say something to the effect of like, who's gonna look for you when you're the one that goes missing or something. She's also found like dead pigeons in her driveway, one of them without a head. She's also seen these weird chalk drawings in her driveway of stick figure people without their heads, and they keep like moving closer and closer to her house, which is just so ominous to take something as simple as like something a child would do, but like, no, I just don't like it. Also, on one of her runs one day, she saw a dead girl walking written in chalk, like just on the sidewalk. So obviously the culmination of all of these things, like, it's not looking good. So Robbie convinced her to take it to the police department, which the police department in Fairview is questionable, honestly. But she was talking to them and like presenting all of their information, and they were like, I don't really see a correlation between all of these things, and I can't really do anything for you. And I was like, well, damn, it's a good thing that Pip doesn't need your help because, like, they all suck. Like, one of the emails that she received, there was, like a PS at the bottom of it, and it said, PS, remember to always kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Hence, like, the 2 dead birds that were in her driveway. I was like, how do you not see a correlation? Like, maybe it's not enough to, like, fully do something with all of this information, but to, like, not see a correlation at all, I just don't get. So while all of that is, like, very scary on its own, she was also doing some research one day, trying to figure out if, like, this kind of sequence of things has happened to somebody before. And it turned up an article about this serial killer who was active, like, 6 years ago, I think, who was called the DT killer, which is, like, the duct tape killer. And in one of the interviews that somebody was doing with the sister of one of his victims, they asked her sister if the victim was like acting like differently in the last few weeks or like saying anything about it. And apparently there were chalk figures on their driveway and dead pigeons. So I'm like, don't like it. But it turns out that that serial killer, allegedly this serial killer, pleaded guilty to all of these crimes like 5 years ago and has been in prison ever since. But the thing is, the guy that pleaded guilty doesn't exactly look like the composite sketch of what the serial killer is supposed to look like. And the dude's mother is like very adamant that like her son did not do this. So obviously all of this information is kind of leading us to think like maybe the serial killer is not behind bars. And maybe he's coming for Pip. Or maybe all of this information is a red herring. I don't know. But I think this is such a good setup for the last book in the series because the first 2 books have really focused on, you know, people that Pip is close to, but it's not gonna be as personal and as like intense as I feel like this book is about to be. So I'm so excited to get into the rest of this book. I'm kind of predicting that this is gonna be my favorite of the series. So I'm really hoping that turns out to be true, but I just think it's gonna be fantastic. So I really can't wait. Also, something that I thought was interesting that was brought up was originally Pip was like very not convinced that she should be concerned about this whole serial killer maybe not being the right serial killer type of situation. And then when they found out that the mom has like a whole Facebook group dedicated to like, you know, proving that her son was innocent, and Pip's like, obviously she's gonna think that her son is innocent, like that's her son. But Ravi was like, you know, kind of the same thing happened with me, with my brother, and I feel like that parallel that it draws to the first book is really interesting. And I just think this is gonna be so good. So I'm gonna go read some more and I will update you guys in a bit. Big things have just happened. I am now on page 208 and Pip just got abducted. I don't know by who. Well, maybe. Is this actually? Yes. Ooh, not looking good. Although the fact that this is happening in the middle of the book, I think she'll get away. Anyway, lots of things have been happening in this last, like, I think it's only been like 80 pages since I last talked to you, but we've learned quite a lot. First of all, Pip started getting prank phone calls where somebody would call her and like just not say anything, and like that was one of the other things that was happening to that other victim of the DT killer. So like obviously not good. And she just got her last one like literally a few pages ago, and then she tried to call the number back, but she could hear the phone ringing, like not just on her phone, just like out loud, and then she got snatched. Like somebody like I don't know, it was stressing me out. It's still kind of stressing me out. But the fact that it's happening in the middle of the book is interesting because this is normally the kind of thing that I would think would happen like towards the end of the book. So I feel like she's gonna get away. You know, like I don't think Pip is gonna die. Although honestly, if Holly Jackson killed off her main character, like major respect, to be honest, because that's so bold. And like I know that's kind of weird to say like major respect for an author who would kill off their main character, but it's just like, it's such a bold move that I have seen very few people do. So like while I don't want it to happen and while I don't think it would happen. Okay, I've gotten off on a tangent. None of that is relevant because I do not think Pip is gonna die. But like one of the main things that we have learned since the last time I talked to you is that there is indeed a link that like ties all of the mysteries of this series together, and it is so satisfying to finally see it because the mysteries in book 1 and 2, like they seem very separate at face value, but like now that everything is being tied together in this book, I'm like, oh, that's so satisfying. And I love it. But also we learned that Andy Bell, who is the girl from the first book who everybody thought Sal killed, but apparently she had contact with the sister of one of the victims of the DT killer. So Pip looked more into that and she found out that Andy had this like separate email account, and she managed to get into that email account, and in one of the drafts she found this whole email from Andy talking about how she knows who the DT killer is and how it's somebody who is in her house constantly and she just like doesn't know what to do anymore. So like all of the reasons she was acting weird before her whole like murder happened, like all of that was because she knew who this person was and like she wanted to get away from them. So she was acting like very rashly. And I was like, that's so interesting, like finally kind of tie that up, because while I wasn't necessarily like questioning it like actively, it was kind of just like, you know, it is kind of weird that she was acting that way. I mean, I know that I said she wasn't a great sister earlier, but that's what Holly Jackson wanted me to believe as a reader, and she did a good job, to be honest. I was all ready to just like believe that Andy kind of sucked as a person. But yeah, this is gonna be kind of a short update because I wanted to stop because like Pip just got taken. So I wanted to give you some thoughts before we kind of move into this next part. But this book has just been so good so far. I feel like this has more of a thriller kind of feel to it, while the first two are like very much mystery. And while I like the mystery, I think the thrillers tend to just like keep me more enthralled. So I'm kind of living for this book. So I'm gonna go read some more. Gonna hope that our girl Pip is okay. And I'll talk to you guys later. Okay, so I've witnessed some things. I have just made it up to part 2. And I can't say that Jason didn't have it coming. Well, maybe that's it. So it turns out that Jason Bell, who is Andy's dad, is the DT killer. He was the one that took Pip, duct taped her up, which is a terrifying thought, to like have your entire head encased in duct tape. I'd rather not think about it. And then he just left her, I don't know, to like go have a victory lap or something. But in that time, she managed to escape, and she was just gonna, you know, leave it alone, call the police. But Pip was like, you know what, I should just handle it myself. And then she beat him to death with a hammer, which is on it. I can't say I ever, no. I mean, it kind of makes sense. Like, the trajectory of this series, I feel like it's been leading to an event like this. It's just kind of crazy to actually see it happen. But I'm also so scared of the fact that this happened in the middle of the book. I'm like, what's about to happen? Because like the main issue with this book has essentially been resolved because obviously her stalker is now dead. So I'm like, what is gonna happen with like Pip and the police on this one? Because I just feel like there's gonna be some issues. And I'm a little bit scared. And I just don't like it. I hate it when like important things like this happen in the middle of the book. I'm like, what is left? I'm gonna go process all of that. And then I'm gonna go read some more. Okay. I now completely understand what people mean when they say the end of this series really does just get completely unhinged. So basically, I'm on page 377 now. I think I have like 70 pages left. And the entirety of what I've been reading since the last time I talked to you was Pip and Ravi covering up the fact that Pip murdered Jason Bell. This is just very much not where I was expecting the series to go. Like, it's such a good twist because I never would have expected it. But the whole time I've been reading this, I've just been slightly just like perplexed, but also morbidly fascinated by everything that's going on. And like, it has been so in-depth. Honestly, it's gone a little too in-depth at some points. I feel like it's dragged like a little bit because like we've been covering up this murder for like 150 pages. And at some point I'm like, I get it. Like, I really get it. But also it goes into such detail and I'm like, the thought that would have had to go into writing something like this is kind of scary. Like, I feel like I can't even like imagine like having to write all of this, because even just reading it, I have to like remind myself sometimes. I'm like, this did not actually happen. Like, it's all good. Like, don't worry about it. And honestly, the thing that was really getting me is like Pip and Ravi, like they're the only two who know like the whole story. But while they were like going through all of these steps, like, you know, burning down this building, dragging the body to the woods, like Ravi was still cracking jokes. And I was like, all right, I get that's like a coping mechanism, but it just seems wrong. And there's a lot of things have happened. Just a lot has gone on. And now I am learning that Pip is going to make season 3 of her podcast where she leads the police like along on this investigation, because she has been framing Max Hastings this whole time. Like, I feel like the first half of this book was like relatively in line with like the vibe of the other 2 books in this series, but ever since part 2 started, I'm just like, I don't even know what I'm reading anymore. But also I'm so curious to see how this is going to end up, because I don't know if I fully believe that Pip is going to get away with murder. That's where I'm at with it right now. I obviously am going to sit down and read the last 70 pages because I can't not know what happens at this point. Like, the last half of this book has been like crazy, a little drawn out in some places, but it's still like, it's compulsively, like, I just gotta keep reading it. You know, like, I can't put it down now. I need to see what's gonna happen next. So I'm gonna go do that, and I will talk to you guys after, when I have finished the book. As you will have seen, I did finish As Good as Dead last night. I think I'm also gonna give this one a 4-star, honestly. Like, I feel like this series is a very strong 4-star series. I feel like the books kind of fluctuate in that 4-star zone. So it's a very strong 4-star series, you know? Like, I had a really good time reading it, and I'm really glad I finally picked it up. As for this book, I did really enjoy the ending of it, the last page when we found out that Max Hastings was indeed charged with the murder of Jason Bell, and Ravi like texts Pip like, "Hey Sarge, remember me?" I was like, that's so cute. I love them. Like, they were so much fun as like main characters throughout this series, and I am so excited to watch the TV show. I have no idea when it's coming out. I just know that it's been announced, but I think it's gonna be so good. Honestly, I feel like I've said everything that is worth saying about this book, so it was good. I think this is probably is this my favorite of the series? I feel like it's probably tied with the first one. I don't know. Because while this one kind of has this weird thriller element to it, I also just really liked the mystery of the first one better. But I just really enjoyed all of them, so that's great. But we're actually not done yet because I still need to read Killjoy, and I'm gonna do that this morning. Although honestly, I've had enough of filming myself flipping through pages, so I'm going to update my reading journal with like all of these, and I'll show you that while I listen to the audiobook for Killjoy, because I done a lot of reading this week. How many pages is this? I need to see how many pages this is. So basically, I've read like 1,240 pages over the last span of like 5 days, and it was a good time. It was just a lot. So I think a break while I listen to the audiobook for Killjoy is needed. I'm gonna go do that, and then I will give you my final thoughts on this. And then that'll be the end of the vlog. I know this is getting kind of long, but I hope you guys are enjoying anyway because I've had a really good time filming this. So I will talk to you guys in a few. Okay, so I just finished up Killjoy, and I just want to know who is gonna come and have a murder mystery party with me, because this was so much fun and I really enjoyed this novella. I'm super glad that I decided to pick it up. It really just is following Pip and her friend group as they have a murder mystery party. And they're all really getting into it. Connor's brother Jamie kind of acts as like the director of sorts of this mystery, and he like progresses the mystery along, and like he really got into it too. And I was like, brother of the year, like that is so cool that he would, you know, put in the effort like that for his little brother for the murder mystery party. I just thought it was so much fun. Also, seeing Pip get way too into it, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Honestly, I felt kind of bad for it though. In the end, when she went on this like elaborate monologue, like explaining the whole thing, and then they were like, actually, you're wrong. So obviously that's probably like the inspiration she needed to finally pick her senior capstone project. She also saw Robbie crossing the street, and I was like, I'm glad he was here a little bit at least, but I feel like that's also what kind of pushed her to pick her final topic. So it's really interesting to see her pre-Good Girls Guide to Murder, when she wasn't like, a lot of things went down in this series, so to kind of see her before all of the bad things happened, it was just kind of nice. So I really enjoyed this. If I was gonna rate it, I'd probably also give it a 4-star, to be honest. But for the most part, I don't rate novellas, but I might rate this one. But I am also here to just end the vlog because I finally read all of the books I said I was going to read in this vlog, and I managed to do it in 5 days. While I enjoyed like all of the mysteries that we were investigating throughout this series, I feel like it has a lot more to it than just the mystery element, which I really appreciated. Obviously, we're following Pip and her descent into madness, essentially. And the thing is, it makes sense. Like, if something like this happened to a teenage girl, like, I know if this happened to me when I was gonna say when I was 17, but honestly, if this happened to me now, I would just be like, I don't even know what I would do, to be honest. So to see like the somewhat realistic ramifications of like this happening to a person was really interesting, because I feel like in a lot of mystery stories you don't really get that. I just really liked it, you know? I also really liked Pip and Robbie's relationship, so seeing that kind of as a subplot throughout this series was also really nice. I feel like they're honestly perfect for each other, so it was so much fun. I need to put these in order of how much I liked them. I think that'd be kind of fun. Honestly, I don't know if I can do this because, well, Good Girl Bad Blood is on the bottom. I think As Good as Dead is probably gonna be next after that. Then Killjoy, then A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I feel like for what Killjoy is, I just really enjoyed it. So while it's kind of hard to compare it to like the longer books, I still feel like this is where I'd put it. I really enjoyed it. It was a really fun time. So, there we go. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to go because this video is already way too long, but I really hope you guys enjoyed it because I certainly had a fun time filming this video. I love doing a good dedicated video to a series. I know I don't do them very often, but when I do, it's a really good time. As I said before, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please do. Obviously, just talk to me about A Good Girl's Guide to Murder down below. Do you guys have a favorite book in the series? Do you have a least favorite book in the series? I would love to know your thoughts on it. We can chat about it. That'll be really fun. Also, I did quickly want to say thank you so much to everybody over on my Patreon. If you guys are ever looking for more content from me, we do a lot of fun stuff. It's always linked below. And I am going to finally let you guys go. I really hope I've already said that. Okay, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go. Okay, bye.